Crispy, and this is my rant. Today I'm going to talk about the common saying among more modern contemporary Christians that states it's not about religion, or it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And what's meant by that is that that our focus is a relationship with Jesus, and that religion is it's an old tired sort of thing where you just kind of go through the motions. But we're about relationship. And it casts religion in a negative light as something we don't like. That religion, we're about relationship, and it sounds good. It sounds so good I used to fall for it. But a pastor friend of mine mentioned it. I thought about it. I've actually come to this conclusion on my own. I try and he's very forceful and very convincing, but I try to think for myself. I don't try to just adopt things that he thinks but anyway. And I've come to the conclusion that he's right. We probably have slightly different reasons, and like with a lot of things, I'm probably more tolerant of that phrase than he is. But anyway, here we go. So first, if we want to know if something is not the thing, we have to know what that thing is. And I think this is part of the problem and why this is a statement that's accepted so readily, but it's actually not accurate, is because I think there's a misdefinition of what religion is. And I think when people use this phrase, it's not religion, I think they're defining religion as the tired old practice of following rules and performing rituals. And that's their limit. That's kind of what they're limiting religion. Like they're thinking of, like, I don't mean to pick on them. Again, my pastor friend would, but I don't mean to pick on, but the Catholics, because I used to go there, and I know it was a very formal service. It was a ritual. I mean, the whole thing was a ritual. And it was pretty awful. No offense, but because we're just reciting the same things every week. The only thing, the readings, there was some things that were a little different, but it was the same format. And our worship services today, Protestant, even modern worship services, still kind of have, we have start off with worship songs, we have announcements, sermon, prayer, but the songs are totally different. There's not a lot of recitation of things in the Catholic Church. I think there's a lot of resuscitation of things. There's a lot of things that are said that are the same words every week, which differentiates it from the Protestant service, which again is still formulaic, but I'm going to call it ritualistic. But you could, and it would be fair. I just wouldn't agree. So let's take a look at what religion is, and let's see if Christianity, as practiced by people who say it's not about religion, it's about relationship. Let's see if Christianity would qualify as a religion the way those people practice it, or many of those people. Not all, we can't say all, but most. Hey. Religion is a structured system of beliefs, practices, and symbols and values, usually centered on the worship of a sacred, divine, or supernatural power. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something Christians do? It often includes organized rituals, moral codes, and cultural traditions to provide individuals with a framework to understand life, death, and their place in the universe. Okay, this second sentence, I'm gonna say, organized rituals. A lot of the people who use this saying, it's kind of like a motto for their faith, probably don't have a lot of organized rituals. It's probably more than they realize, but moral codes, I would hope so. We're going to get to that in a minute. Cultural traditions, yeah, I think they're still there. It's just they're just different ones, but I think they're there, and they're not as long lasting, and they may have more relevance. And I think that's part of the thing with rituals also, is oftentimes they don't really have any relevance to what's going on today. They're just things we did because we did them before. So, but definitely, it's a framework to understand life, death, and the place in the universe. Yes, 100%. That's what people who believe it's not about religion, it's about relationship. That's what they believe. Key aspects of religion. Let's see how many key aspects of religion the people who use this phrase actually accept or believe in, or describing their version of Christianity. Belief systems: faith in a higher power, divine forces, or spiritual principles. Big old check. Big old check. That's, matter of fact, Jesus is the higher power, divine forces, spiritual relation. Not spiritual. They're having a relationship with the spiritual principles. The fact he's relational, not rules oriented. Practices and rituals, behaviors such as prayer. Well, yeah, that's how they build the relationships. The prayer thing. That's what that is. Meditation. Okay, that's worship services most of the time. Rites of passage? Yeah, okay. I don't think there's many formal ones in their version. So, all right. Social and community aspect, often organized in institutions like churches or communities that foster shared experiences. Yes, including the idea that it's not religion, it's relationship. That is a shared experience and opinion that people offer to one another in these social and community aspects, such as a church, community, small group, ethical moral framework, guidance for behavior based on sacred text, doctrines, or divine authority. Yes, but I think the religion, not religion but relationship thing, calls I think there's an issue here. But yes, that's still ultimate concerns addresses profound human questions regarding existence, suffering, and the afterlife. Absolutely. Okay, so yeah, they believe. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's common. So what we've determined here is that Christianity is practiced today by more modern Christians who would use the phrase under question. It qualifies as a religion according to this definition, which is a very standard definition. I got it from Google AI, but it's a very standard definition. I've seen it before. It's very fair. So, what are we saying when we say it's not religion, it's relationship? What's being said here? And I think the issue is, I'm pretty sure the issue is, from what I'm hearing, is that religion is being narrowly defined, more narrowly than this. What they're saying is that religion is the hard and fast rules, the solid rules, the things that you must do or must not do, and the rituals, the things that you do because you've always done them before. That's how they're defining religion. That's a list of rules that you must follow and rituals that you must practice. And I think that's the religion part of the not religion. And if you limit Christianity to that, then it's absolutely true. It's not if that's the definition of religion, it's not that. I 100% agree. That's not what religion is, though. It's not just rules. It's not just rituals. It's this basic idea of how we interact with what we believe is a higher power and what we believe and how we express that. So I get what they're saying, but I think there's a couple flaws even in that. So it's not just about rules, but there are rules. Let's be clear, at no point in your relationship with Jesus or your relationship with the Father is there ever going to be a time where you say, my spouse really doesn't love me anymore and isn't very nice to me. So you think it's okay if I go sleep with this other person? And, Jesus, ever the friend, says, I think it's okay in this case because you've been through a lot. No, that's never going to happen because there is a rule against sleeping with someone when you're married to someone else. There is a rule. That is a rule. There's no way around that. And I think I'm certainly not saying that most people who think it's not about religion, it's relationship or looking to have adultery, but I'm saying this is kind of where that leads when you define religion in that way. When you're kind of leaving it open to the only thing that really matters is like how I relate to God. I mean, that's the ultimate thing that matters. But there are rules. I mean, the Sermon on the Mount doesn't take away the rules. It takes the rules and it kind of expands them to an attitude of the heart. It says that the rule isn't really the important thing, but you still need to follow it. But furthermore, it expands it. And are there situations where the rule doesn't necessarily apply in all circumstances? Yes, and we know that from the Bible because we know that Jesus healed on the Sabbath, which there was a strict rule against working on the Sabbath, which technically Jesus would have been violating, except it's more important to do good on the Sabbath than it is to follow the. So yes, in that case, the relationship overcame the rule. Jesus was one with God the Father, and so he healed because that's what he was supposed to do because that was more important. The showbread that the disciples ate, even though they weren't technically supposed to because they were hungry, or the ritual they ate, and then he pointed back to David eating the showbread. Yes, that's a situation where David had this relationship, and this rule was set aside because of the importance of getting fed. So yes, there will be times when that relationship will, in very specific circumstances, kind of lead to maybe the rule doesn't really apply in this situation. The rule didn't go away. It's just it didn't apply. It didn't apply here. There was a bigger concern than this rule. So that's where the relationship comes in. So I do think there's a danger in just having this idea that it's all about relationship and there's no religion involved. There's no rules. There's no rituals. There's kind of no guidelines. It's just kind of like whatever I'm feeling with God. That's kind of the end point of that. I'm not saying that's what people who say that believe. I'm saying that's the potential end point. And whenever you take a saying like that, you got to kind of look at, okay, what is it saying and where does it end? Especially when the saying is demonstrably untrue, it is a religion. Christianity is absolutely a religion. It's not focused on, it's not just about rules, but they're rules. It's not primarily about rituals, but rituals are oftentimes a part of it. It is about relationship, but it still is a religion, 100%. So it's a religion and a relationship. The relationship is the most important part of the religion, but it's not the only part of the religion. Also, the other issue is that when we're speaking to non-Christians who don't kind of understand the vocab, who don't get the terminology, who haven't had the lived experience and don't understand what we mean when we say the word religion or how the word religion is being defined in this circumstance, you're mostly not going to come off as very knowledgeable about it. It's going to sound silly to them. It may be an attention getter. I will concede it might be an attention getter because maybe if you're combating somebody who thinks that that kind of like the very strict version of like Islam, they may not know all of it, but they have to pray 5 times a day, have to take the pilgrimage to Mecca, or Catholicism, like very, we do the host during Lent, we don't eat meat, and give up something, we have all these certain things that they have to do, all these rituals and these rules have to be kept, and they may think that your version of Christianity is the same way. So in that sense, maybe it's like, it's not about religion, it's about relationship, but then you have to go on and explain that how you're defining religion. But in most cases, no, that's not really useful, and it's people are just not going to kind of buy into that. And it's especially annoying when I see people I knew were Christians on dating sites who didn't list they said they weren't religious, they were spiritual. That's not what that means. That's not what that means. Spiritual means you kind of have this kind of ethereal. There may be something out there. I kind of feel, I kind of feel something beyond myself. That's spiritual. You're not non-religious if you're a Christian. You're just not. I don't care what the saying says. Even if you agree with the saying, you're not non-religious. And when outsiders are looking at that, they're not banking on getting a born again Christian when they go out on the first day. Oh, I go to church all the time. What do you mean? You said you were spiritual, not religious. What do you mean by that? Because that's not how people define things. I think Christians aren't the only ones. It's just the ones I notice oftentimes have the kind of their own vocabulary that they expect outsiders to get. But I know there's other groups that are the same. It's just that I have experience with Christians, so I've seen that. But I know like academia also has vocabulary that sometimes if you use it outside of that context, I think academia generally tends to be either smart enough or arrogant enough to just kind of assume people outside don't understand. But and Christians don't have that arrogance. They kind of just assume that everybody kind of understands the world the same way, which they don't. But so anyway, Christianity is a religion. It is also a relationship. The relationship is the most important aspect of the religion. But there are still rules. There are still things we have to do. There are still things that are important to kind of obligations that we have. But at the end of the day, it is about relationship. It's about having a relationship with the Father and with Jesus and and the Holy Spirit in our lives and being able to converse and get guidance and also, offer our praise and worship. All those things are part of that relationship. But that relationship is just the focus of our religion, but we still have a religion. So that's my thoughts. I think that's as good as it's going to get. So I think I'll keep that one even with some imperfections. And again, I'm not trying to crap on a sacred cow, but I'm just saying I think the phrase is misguided, and I think there's danger. Like I said, not that again, it's not that people are trying to get a way out or it's a loophole. I'm just saying, taken to its end point, this is a possible outcome. And I think it's one that we just have to watch out for and just have to realize, let's just use words the right way and express what we really mean, when we say religion. And I think we'll get a clearer view of what we're trying to accomplish and how our faith works. So that's what I got. Have a good day.